Well, if a visitor came to town in the height of the production area, you would hear these big punch presses they used to punch out a hole. They would punch out a whole end of a boxcar or a refrigerated car at one time. Boom, 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 all day long. If you lived near the shop itself, you'd hear the riveters going. Another sound you would hear is the railroad sounds of the steam engines. Back in those days, there was a distinctive whistle. The whistles were going day and night, and it was a very distinctive sound.
Distinctive sounds for a distinctive place. East Rochester, New York, formerly known as Despatch. Despatch, New York was a small village that made a big impact on the history of the United States. In the late 19th century, Merchants Despatch Transportation Company had to expand its car shops. The company was getting a flood of orders for new freight cars, including the highly sought-after refrigerator cars that could haul perishables from coast to coast. Walter Parse, an innovative entrepreneur, came up with the ideal place for the new car shops just east of Rochester, New York.
They had different requirements. It had to be next to the main line of the railroad, which it was, and it had to be, able to put a siding in so they can get the cars that they built on the main line of the railroad. And it had to be not swampy. It had to be good, solid ground. So this area met all those qualifications. And also, Walter Parse, kind of as a deal closer, he says, if you come up here, I'll give you free land.
Parse bought a number of potato farms, and in 1897, construction began on the Merchants Despatch Transportation Company. Next on the to-do list was to build a village for workers and their families. The village of Despatch was the second planned community in the United States, only preceded by Washington, D.C. Like an artist with a blank canvas, designers of the community started from scratch, laying out the town center, utilities, streets, and lots for individual homes. They even named the North and South streets after presidents, and the East and West streets after types of trees. The Vanderbilt Improvement Company was established so future factory workers could buy a house for an incredibly low price. In May of 1897, in an effort to attract these homebuyers, a massive cookout was held and was attended by over 5,000 people from neighboring towns who enjoyed roast beef sandwiches, lemonade, and cigars. While a good time was had by all, the results of the event proved disappointing.
But the catch was, after spending all this money and all these fancy food and all that stuff, not one lot was sold. But once the village got established, and about 6 months later, they couldn't sell them fast enough.
As the village was completed, more people moved to Despatch, built homes, and started working at what the locals now call the car shops.
Everyone who lived and worked in the village supported the factory in some way, either working at the factory or one of the support industries that helped the car building industry.
For decades, the car shops flourished, averaging 18 cars a day. The highly successful refrigerator cars brought fame to the village, which is now called East Rochester instead of Despatch. People were happy to work near home. As it was planned in the beginning, life in this small community still finds beauty in its simplicity. All good things must come to an end, and that's what happened in East Rochester when, in 1970, the car shops ceased operation. Today, all that remains is one lonely building, memories of all the workers, and the legacy of the MDT refrigerator rail cars.
The refrigerator cars that were built in East Rochester not only served the New York Central Railroad, but they transported perishable merchandise all around the country. So the solid blue-collar jobs that built these freight cars in East Rochester benefited the entire nation and built up the economy.
In a little small town like East Rochester, population at that time about 7,500, it was quite an accomplishment.